Hello and a very warm welcome to this episode of the We Talk Talent Series Season 2, a specially curated initiative by the Economic Times ETHRWorld. And I'm very delighted to welcome today's guest with us, Mr. Mayukh Maiti, Executive Vice President HR for Tata Capital Limited. Mayukh comes with over 30 years of experience with the Tata Group, a metallurgist by profession. He has moved across diverse disciplines such as manufacturing, research and development, quality and business transformation, supply chain management, outsourcing and change management, marketing and market research, and human resources across multiple companies within the group. In the HR domain, Mayukh has worked across the areas of manpower planning and productivity management, talent and succession management, organizational and leadership development, compensation and benefit management, information system and shared services, and HR process automation. As a part of his current role, he is also leading the strategic initiative of creative insight driven business and HR decision making engagement processes through digitization, automation, analytics, and robotics. Welcome, Mayukh.
Thanks, Priya. Thanks for this welcome.
So, without any further ado, I would just straight jump into my first question. If you can share your take on the disruption and transformation taking place in your industry currently in reference to the pandemic.
I would speak from the perspective of the NBFC industry and more particularly in the perspective of from the perspective of Tata Capital, right? I would not say that pandemic has, everybody says today the pandemic has accelerated or started off a great digital transformation wave. I would say our journey started much before that. Yes, I can definitely say that the digital adoption per se may have been accelerated by the pandemic, but the journey started much earlier. So the disruption that's happening today, if I would put it very succinctly, is being driven by digital adoption and digital changes, and that is across the value chain, right from sourcing of say loans to underwriting them, to collecting them, to doing the backend operations, to all the support services. So this technology is basically now has become all pervasive. So we are shifting to be a digital organization rather than more transaction oriented in process organization. So that is one of the large pieces of transformation that we are going through, and I think this will continue. And here skies is the limit. So you can always do better than what you were doing it yesterday. And as if they say that in technology, whatever you can think, you can do. So it is limited only by our thinking of what you could do. The second point is also that because of this technology adoption, this is being experienced both from the customer point of view as well as from the employee point of view. Customers today also have choices which are being driven digitally. So, for example, you want to shop for a loan, you will go to the internet and look at 5 different options and come back to us. They are exactly aware as to how the processes are, what are the proficiencies or deficiencies of every other service provider. So they make choices which are, and so you have to be there on the creating a digital footprint, creating experiences around customers, which will help you differentiate yourself vis-a-vis your competitors. Similarly, when you come to employee experience, etc., it is similarly being driven digitally because we recruit people from the industry, from outside the industry, and people now every company has a focus towards being able to create employee experience being driven by digital technologies, and that is what people new, especially the younger employees, expect out of any organization. How fast your processes are, how transparent the processes are, how effective or efficient the processes are, and that all goes into creation of employee experience. So even that piece is being digitally. The third piece is a lot of outcomes are now being predicted. So using AI ML, for example, using predictions. So predictions as to how the business will grow, predictions how the processes will run, prediction on what sort of attritions you will face, predictions on what sort of, if you recruit a particular guy, what sort of productivity you can expect. Everything is going to the realm of predictions. So you need to have a very, very uh, I would say sanitized and well-meant database, time series based database to support your predictions, because any predictive model takes a large amount of past data to rely on, and you have to keep at it to constantly improve upon the quality of the predictions that's happening. Another thing is, of course, being in NBFCs and being a domestic organization, we are constantly increasing our footprints. So our from metros to tier A, tier B, and tier C cities, the wave keeps on going. And as you go ahead with the rural penetration, your use of technology, etc., even becomes even more important, because obviously what used to happen yesterday is for X amount of disbursement, you would perhaps need X amount, Y amount of manpower. But today, that X amount of disbursement is not equivalent to Y amount of manpower. You will use technology, you will use a combination of people processes. So you will always hire lesser in, I mean, your ratios will always be more productive. So you have to become more productive as you go ahead by using technologies. But at the same point of time, you are focusing on geographical footprint improvement. So these are the various levers that are basically influencing this entire space as we are going ahead. Of course, there is this entire stricter governance and regulations which are keeping on improving, in terms of the government is trying to create more regulations, more structures, more statutory means, and we have to be aware of that fact and comply with them. So your governance systems and cyber security and etc. has to be that much better, more better, and as you go ahead.
Yeah, totally agree with your points. As you also mentioned that now moving forward, everything has to be with the focus of being digital first.
Mm.
So with that, I would like to ask you, what kind of skills do you look for while hiring across functions? Technical skills, soft skills, behavior skill, or a combination?
I would say that the answer to that question per se will depend upon what jobs are you hiring for. For example, I would give you example of Tata Capital. There are basic amount of tenants which we will not compromise on, in terms of your values, right? In terms of your culture fit and etc. Those are the basic things which any which ways you would not, and those are hygiene for us, right? Anybody that you recruit has to come with certain amount of cultural fit, certain amount of value traits which is aligned to the organization. Uh, Next comes the function that you are looking for. For example, if it is a very, very technical area, for example, you're recruiting somebody for analytics, if you're recruiting somebody for treasury, I mean, those are areas where you will look at uh, technical skills first, right? And also because of the fact that some of these functions are more individual driven, are individual contributors rather than, they of course will work in teams, but teams are small and etc. But if you're looking for a sales guy, for a collections guy, there of course your one, of course there's a hygiene amount of functional skills will definitely need to have, but you'll also pay a good amount of emphasis on your behavioral skills and your team building skills, leadership skills, because there you would want them to be a part of a large team or lead a large team and so on and so forth. And so it actually, the question answer to that is the proportion, perhaps it's always a combination, but the proportion of that technical versus behavioral skills those change with the jobs, class of jobs that you are looking at.
Yeah, that's a very valuable and strategic point that it depends on the job. So we can divide the proportion for behavioral and the technical skills. Uh,
For example, if you're looking at a functional head, the leadership skills, you will put more emphasis there rather than actually looking at. I mean, obviously, you will have to have the functional skills, but the depth of the functional skills is not something you will probe so much into rather than his leadership skills.
yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
So with that, I would like to ask my second question. So how do you see jobs evolving in your sector? Since you also mentioned the timings have changed so much, how we used to have the traditional model and now
Yeah.
everything is moving to digital.
Yeah. Uh, as I said, I mean, the move that I see, and I would say that this is the trend that will go forward, is transactional jobs in organizations are going to go towards knowledge jobs. Why? Because if it is a repetitive transactional job, if not today, but in next 3 to 5 years' time, will be taken up by bots. Any repetitive transactional job will be taken up by bots. If it is a transactional job which requires some amount of subjectivity, it will be outsourced, right? So for organizations, the jobs that will remain are more knowledge driven, where you need to take a decision, where you need to create a scenario, where you have to improve upon certain things. So those are the jobs which will remain with the organization, and the requirement for every individual will be how can you do this job better than what you were doing yesterday, right? So that is will be the ask for any individual. So that is one shift that I definitely will change. Very few jobs will remain as individual jobs. They will be more system driven or digital automation driven jobs. As I told you that people will first look at automating. If they can't automate, they will outsource the job. If not, and then all of that doesn't happen, then it will remain within the organization. There is a large emphasis which come on servicing any job, because whether you are in HR or you are in finance or you are in sales collections, everybody has a customer. So how well you are, the outcomes, the job will be not how you are doing it, what is that you are doing, and what is the outcome, and how is it affecting your end customer. So every job will be evaluated by the quality of the outcome that you are bringing onto the place. One thing that will has definitely changed and will keep on changing is the place of delivery. Today, till yesterday, before the pandemic, everybody was expected to be in office. Today, even if you expect people to be back in office, you still have the flexibility of knowing that which all jobs can be done from work from home situation or remote situation, or and there's a change in even in the superiors and etc. That and every employee understands. For example, we have realized that if there is an ideation process to be triggered, ideation workshop doesn't typically happen very well on the teams. Say, for example, on a digital media, there you perhaps want to have a face-to-face setting, and which creates more of those ideas to free flowing ideas to happen. But if it is a review meeting, perhaps till yesterday, people were encouraged to travel to a particular location where people could sit together in a conference room and get reviewed. That can very well shift to a digital media. So people have started saving on travel times. People have more flexibility in terms of choosing where they want to work from and etc. So that is, I think, will keep on happening. I mean, I can say for Tata Capital, while we have told 100% people should be back in their jobs, I mean, people, it's well accepted now that I can choose when I have depend on what all engagements I have during the day, whether I work from home or work from the office. So those choices have changed. And the last but not the least, I think the approach towards the job is also changing. Here, I think the movement is more happening towards creation of empowered teams where there is a certain project to be delivered. People come together from different departments, from different functions. They're empowered. They do the job, go back to that. It's like a scrum sort of working scenario, which is very prevalent. Multi-skilling. So I no longer can just say that I only do this A function because I was hired for it. The expectation are that to create resilience for the organization, organizations are pushing to also learn peripheral skills. So, for example, if I was doing a credit underwriting for a business loan, tomorrow I can also do personal loans. I can do a housing loan. So, so people who take that risk, learn that peripheral jobs are the ones which will progress within the organization. So these are the few changes I think which happening in the jobs which are evolving.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for sharing all those points. Those are really some great insights that you have shared. Since you also shared that everything has changed for a better scenario, and the main point that we have been going through the pandemic is also led to the challenge of employee engagement for the companies. Since the
Mm.
scenario has changed and the workforce has moved to more of a hybrid culture. So
Mm.
with that, I would like to ask you what your employment engagement strategy has been and how it has been changed after the pandemic.
Employee engagement per se, uh, I mean, and this is again not driven by the pandemic. Uh, Employee engagement as a concept, I mean, most organizations are attuned to do vanilla engagements, as we would call it. So we sort of devise one particular, say, Holi festival or Diwali festival or an annual fest, whatever we want to do it, and everybody in the organization, we roll it out for everybody in the organization. Everybody participates in it, and we used to call that employee engagement. But as I believe that as you move ahead, these effectiveness of these vanilla and employee engagements will keep on coming down, because every year if you do the same thing, I mean it's not going to be a very fruitful one in the long run. I mean, this is the diminishing return theory. But what I would say is that organizations now have started moving towards customized employee engagement experiences. So, for example, if movie ticket uh, engages Mayukh, it may not be the same thing which engages Priya, right? It might be a concert ticket. It can be a different. It may be a picnic. It can be a. So we need to organizations need to constantly work to figure out what are those pockets of different customizations that one can create to keep employees, because triggers for engagement for different individuals are very different. One can be very engaged by doing a volunteering work, right? One can be very engaged by getting a challenging project, right? So how do you how do you basically figure out how this customization works is a puzzle which every employer would have to figure out on their own. But what we have tried to start doing in Tata Capital is trying to work out a technology solution where we can find out real-time feedback. And for example, a new employee joins, for example, do 100% of the new employees are able to give a feedback on their joining experience? Are we able to measure it and improve our processes to suit that? If you roll out a policy, every time you roll out a policy, you get a feedback from the employees across. And as you grow, especially when you are spread across the country and you have so many employees, Are you able to gauge what is working for a particular geography, what is not working for a particular geography, so on and so forth. So how do you create these real-time feedbacks, develop patterns, then create analytic models which can then predict that this category of employees perhaps are engaged by this sort of levers, these sort of this doesn't work for the another group of employees. So this is something which we are working on currently as to how do we create a platform where you can get real-time analytics. For example, as we were talking about Glassdoor and etc., employees go on to the Glassdoor and give feedback. They go to different social media sites and post their preferences. They have Facebook. They have. I mean, there are very various social media. Not only right now about the organization, you see what they are doing and what their preferences are. Are you able to capture them? If they're an employer, are you able to capture them and put them together? That you know, Priya is a part of the group which I believe gets motivated by say a volunteering work, and hence I create a customized program for Priya to do go ahead and do it, right? So employee engagement as a strategy is I would not say individual customization, but at least in a piece of at least a pattern wise, product wise, pocket wise customization is it possible. So that I believe is going to be a shift that's happening in the space of employee engagement, and this I believe would also be a lead measure where you can predict early attritions, where you can predict productivities. So this can be used to do that.
Yeah, I can totally relate with your initial points that the vanilla processes will not work, because I have personally also seen that these vanilla processes have effect on just a section of employees,
Very.
not
So,
overall.
other impact time that you get enthusiasm about is very short. You do
Yeah,
it today and forget it tomorrow.
yeah. Or and the section of people who are very interested in those activities is also very less.
Yeah, and organizations ultimately, if you are spending money, this is all money spent.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
would want to measure what is the ROI of that money spent. And the ROI, frankly speaking, of most of these events, while we spend money as organizations, are extremely less. I mean, I have not heard any organization retaining people by doing holy celebrations or I mean, yeah, it is given. ठीक है, चलो किया है.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. So we initially also talk about on the point that you were talking about how job is evolving in your sector, and you talked about how technology is going to take over most of the jobs that can be automated for the future. With that, I would like to ask you, how important do you think are the new age technologies such as data science, machine learning is for HR? And can we say that it aids HR to play a bigger role in businesses?
I think it is pushing. I mean, HR always demanded a place for itself on the board table, and I think the technology space will actually enable HR to do that. At least help. Uh, for example, processes, for example, like productivity measurements for every individual. Now, this is a direct financial measure for the organization, right? Who is the customer of productivity? HR is. HR is the customer, but how do you create processes and systems for measuring it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Create processes around improving productivity of individuals of different functions. How do you create learning systems to aid that? How do you actually measure the outcomes of those? That is something. For example, we have in Tata Capital, we rolled out the balance scorecard, for example, technology driven balance scorecard, where uh, every individual has a balance scorecard, and it is goes in through a regular system of measurement, right? Now anybody can pull up the balance scorecard and assess what is working, what is not working. Do we need to do midterm? And these are strategic initiatives. So HR is no longer good to feel factor in the entire organization, which does song and dance. This is hardcore financial deliverables, for example, for HR. Uh, for example, take an example of manpower planning. Uh, now, manpower planning, for example, some function comes and says that I need 100 salespeople for a particular geography. Now HR has the wherewithal and the ability through its technology and etc. to tell that, look, for 100 people, you will get so much revenues. When you're saying 100 salespeople, it doesn't mean 100 salespeople. When you mean 100 salespeople, it means 50 collections people to support it. You need 20 operations guys. For that, you need so much infrastructure. For that, you need so many supervisors. So 100 salespeople actually translates to 100, say 180 odd people and the related costs which are there. And for this is the revenue line that you are drawing, and this is the bottom line that you'll be able to get from that. So manpower planning is now shifting, which was a key deliverable of human resources, is science driven now, and it is a strategic call of the organization. I recruit 100 guys in Tamil Nadu, or I recruit 25 in West Bengal, 25 in Punjab, 15 Tamil Nadu. So that becomes a strategic support to the board, telling that, yes, I can go ahead and sanction so many people to be recruited. So each and every HR process, attrition, for example, how do you predict attritions? Do you have a prediction mechanism for attritions? Can you predict that in this function, this geography, in the next 3 months, you are going to lose so many people? Because if you lose people, you will lose numbers, sales numbers there. So you have to start recruiting from today to get them on board, take them up the learning curve so that you do not lose that business, right? Or you need to build the bench strength. So these are all hardcore strategic deliverables for HR, and this is today becoming possible through the use of technology, AI, ML driven technology, where it's coming on board. And even all HR transactional processes. Now, HR transaction processes are being taken over by bots. I mean, we have run, I think today we have in HR itself, we have around 18 to 20 different bots which are deployed. I mean, earlier, any small, say, email ID creation, that itself required 6 different interfaces, right? From it goes to, say, HR person goes to the finance to get a GL code. From there, it comes to the business comes back to HR. Then it goes back to the IT team to create a. So there are 6, 7 different interfaces which were required to, and it required say 2 to 3 days for a email ID to be created. Now it happens in 20 seconds because it's a transactional process where you can eliminate all the barriers. So every process that you can think of can be, if it is repetitive, it has a logic-driven solution to it, can be replaced by bots. So I mean, these are all strategic initiatives which one can take over, and it's possible today through the different new age technologies that are possible in HR today, and it's only improving.
Thank you so much for all your points. From what I could understand, that it has reduced a lot of unwanted barriers for the HR professional to actually use their time in more meaningful processes.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mayukh, for your time today. I'm sure audiences have got so much to learn from you.